the WTO, the World Trade Organization, was founded in 1995. Actually, it was quite an interesting process, because the series of international trade negotiations known as the Uruguay Round started in 1986, and in 1986 this was under the aegis of the GATT, the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, which was founded in 1947. And GATT had a very limited mandate. I mean, it basically tried to periodically open negotiations for mutually agreed tariff reductions among willing nations. So it was a very kind of limited regulatory regime for international trade. But during this Uruguay Round, which was so named because the negotiation first started in this Uruguayan city of Punta del Este, it kind of morphed itself into a more ambitious project. So first of all, GATT was more of a kind of limited. The GATT was a rather limited organization, touching upon only mainly tariffs and subsidy issues. Under the Uruguay Round, a lot of new issues have been brought into international trade negotiation, intellectual property rights like patents and copyrights, international investment, government procurement. A lot of new issues were brought to the table, and also very importantly, under the GATT, each country could buy into specific agreements belonging to the GATT. That didn't mean that you had to buy the whole package, whereas in the WTO, there's this idea of single undertaking, which means that once you join the WTO, you are basically signing all the agreements that exist there, unless you know, for a limited range of things that make special arrangements. So it's a much more far-reaching organization in two senses. One is that you are buying the whole package, not a limited number of things, and secondly, it encompassed many more areas than the GATT. So this basically transformed the regime of international trade, because before the WTO, countries could use free trade and protectionism in a more selective way. Now you basically had to buy into the whole agreement. Of course, there was some provision for developing countries, because developing countries, for various reasons, need different arrangements. But I mean, these were kept to the minimum, and basically the result was that all nations, perhaps except the poorest ones, known as the least developed countries, were following a single set of rules when it came to international trade, which of course created a lot of tensions, because developing countries need to be able to use protectionism more broadly if they want to develop their economies. They want to use they want to provide weaker protection for intellectual property rights, so that they can imitate and reverse engineer more technologies from more economically developed nations. But none of these were accepted as legitimate. So basically a single set of rules that were applied to every nation, and that has caused a lot of tensions, because the developing countries are unhappy that they couldn't use policies that they were they regarded as necessary in order to achieve higher levels of economic development. The rich nations were unhappy because they think that everyone should play by the same rule, and developing countries are demanding different things. So we are at the point where there's a fundamental disagreement on how you should run a global regime of trade.